Very good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. I think we are really pleased to have today with us Dr. Anupam Das from IIM Kozhikode to share with us the advantages of computer-mediated communication over traditional methods of communication. It has become inevitable these days to discuss the advantages of the computer mediated communication over traditional methods of communication. He is an associate professor in humanities and liberal arts and management at IIM Kozhikode. He teaches courses on organizational communication, including communication as impression management and public speaking. His research interests include computer-mediated communication, pragmatics, discourse analysis, and much more. I think we are very eager to learn from him. He is a PhD in information science from Indiana University, Bloomington, USA, and I think we have a lot to learn from him today. So very welcome, sir, and I think the audience are waiting to hear from you.
Thank you, Prakriti, and thank you all for joining me today in this webinar. I'm very excited to be here and share my thoughts with you. There are a lot to talk about because computer-mediated communication was my love when I joined my master's program in linguistics at Delhi University. And then I was exploring my research interest. I just thought, and that was the time when people started buying mobile phones, texting each other, and there were a lot of abbreviations and things like that happened, and I got really glued to that aspect of communication. Well, I never thought that the importance of computer-mediated communication, or CMC, short form of that, would be so important today in this pandemic. As you know, that in this kind of trying time, we are unable to meet people, give them a hug, or even talk to each other face to face over a mug of coffee or whatever you want to have, during your spare time. So, but at the same time, business must go as usual, otherwise we will not be able to survive, right? So what is the option that we have? So many of you probably are more conversed with the technology than probably I and many of my people of my generation, and probably even the ones who are elder to us. However, people are now getting used to this, because there is no alternative. Now, let me begin my talk with an anecdote. I think it was sometimes in 2017. I had to go to Kolkata, my hometown, for some urgent meeting with my family members. And while coming back, I flew down to Chennai. And then, instead of taking a flight, I took a connecting train from Chennai to Kolkata. And so it was a morning flight. I got into the train and I was a little tired because I had an early morning flight to Chennai from Kolkata. So as soon as I think got into the train, within half an hour, I had an upper berth, uppermost one. So I became very comfortable. I slept there for about a couple of hours. But when I came down, I found that I was sharing that coop with few others. Essentially, a family of 5. The husband and wife, 2 kids, each of them probably one was 15, another one is 11, and their grandmother was traveling. So it was a kind of an strange scene for me. Typically, I'm someone, when I'm traveling on the train, I would like to interact with people, and obviously, if they seem to be also eager to interact with me. But it so happened, I found that all 5 of them, except for the grandmother, was glued to their mobile phone. The train was moving fast. There was beautiful scenario outside. But none of them were interested to know what is happening either outside the window or even inside the coop. So after a point, I think they got a little bored with their technology, the smartphone and all those things. And suddenly, this lady, the mother of those 2 kids, who seems to be an executive, I didn't know who she was, professionally. So we just, exchanged some greetings and all, and then she asked me what I do for living, and I said, well, I'm a teacher. And she asked me, so what sort of things do you teach? And I said, I teach communication. She seemed a little more interested in that, and then she asked me, so what sort of communication? Um, so then I said, it's business communication and computer-mediated communication. She became more interested to know more about it. And then she asked me, so can you tell me, how do I tell my husband that, there is a line between, home and business? And I asked her, like, what do you mean? She said, my husband doesn't know that, there is a specific private, family time. Even when she is at home, or he's at home, is either, attending the phone calls from office or clients and all those things. And her husband was then, sitting next to me. He became a little red faced and then said, "So, can you, help her, help me, understand her that, I have to do this. This is I'm doing for my career." Now, at that point, I thought, there was a bit of a tense situation. So I didn't want to get into the fight between the husband and wife. And I said, well, there are a lot of ways that we could probably make it happen. But before that, we need to understand what is communication and what is computer-mediated communication. Now, uh, in this session, I will talk about what is computer-mediated communication, followed by how it is integrated in business and education, because many of you probably are facing these issues either as a student or as an instructor, that how to effectively accommodate technology as well as your audience, to have better experience. And next, I'll talk about impacts of computer-mediated communication on business and education. And finally, I'll conclude it with the future directions, what kind of challenges we are facing and what kind of research are happening, so that we could adopt them as we move forward in both in our professional and in personal life. So moving forward, now let us define computer-mediated communication. Computer-mediated communication is very simple. It's any form of communication between two or more individuals who interact and or influence each other via separate computers through the internet or a network connection. For example, what is happening right now, right? I'm interacting with many of you, although I can't see your face, but I know you were there. Many of you are typing, and so all those things, are giving the indication that you are there and attending it. And so this is, a form of computer-mediated communication. Now we are interested into human-to-human, communication rather than human-to-computer interaction. Human-computer interaction is a different area. So we are not going into that. So here we'll talk about, what kind of factors influence our communication processes, including the effectiveness or the barriers of communications. Those things. And next, I will talk about how this CMC is used in business communication, right? So let us define also business communication. So business communication is a multi-dimensional process through which a group of people attempt to achieve business goals. And so business goals could be various different kinds. One could be how to develop a product. Second could be how to assess customers' review. It makes sense because, as we all know, when we go to Amazon or Flipkart, right, before buying something, we often check, customers' review, because when people sell, they all say good things about their product and all. But probably the customers are the ones, who give us not so biased, opinion about those products or services. So we trust more the customers' reviews than the product description. So therefore, so business communication in plain terms is a process by which information is exchanged and understood by two or more people, right? Typically with the intent to motivate or influence behavior. right? In this process, the sender intends to influence and the receiver to do what the sender wants. Okay. So when we understand that, so then we need to really understand how CMC and business communication converge, because all of us now, what is happening? We are in that in that juncture where our there is no difference between our office and home, right? So, office has become home and home has become office, and through this technology, we are connecting with our colleagues, with our customers, all sorts of stakeholders, with our students, whether we like it or not, there is no alternative until we have a vaccine and we are confidently going out without a mask, right? So let us hope that that happens sooner than later. But until then, we really need to make use of that. So in the following slides, I'll just play a short video that would exemplify, how computer-mediated communication in business communication, and what are the positives and pros and cons of that. What kind of challenges we face, what kind of issues we face, and how to overcome them. Unless we overcome them, we'll not be able to really move forward. So let's see, what this video has to offer to us.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for being here on time. Paul? Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Tyler.
Sorry I'm late. Having a hard time connecting.
1 second. Paul's having a sound issue.
I can't hear you.
Try adjusting your output settings.
Can you hear me?
It's the gear icon.
Tyler, are you on hotel Wi-Fi?
Yeah, why?
Never mind, I got it. I just had to change a few settings.
Great. Maybe we can get started then. Oh, great.
I think your mic is picking up your speakers.
My mic?
Do you have headphones?
You want me to put them on?
No, I want you to smell them. No, I want you to put them on. Hey, Beth.
Hey everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had to download a new version of the platform.
You should plan extra time for the updates. There's pretty much one every time.
Sounds like someone just joined.
Hey guys, it's John. I had to call in. I'm stuck in traffic. Have I missed anything yet?
No, it would have been nice for you to join the rest of us, but we'll see you when you get home. All right, while everyone is here, finally, Tyler, do you have that financial report?
Well, it's been the last few weeks updating our books, and I got some great news for you. Schedule from this point last year. We had a great Q1.
We lost Tyler, I think.
Am I frozen?
Hey, Trip, I think we lost Tyler.
Yeah, I know, we lost Tyler.
Hey guys, it sounded like Tyler was cutting out.
We know, John. All right, while we wait on Tyler, why don't we go over all of the reports from... Beth, are you with us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, everyone, I know some of you have to leave soon, but I just wanted to go over a couple of the queries before. Okay, excuse me. My wife's out of town this week. Daddy's, I'm so sorry. Okay, you just spilt grape juice on the carpet. Daddy is in a meeting. Tyler, can you go over the numbers one more time, please?
I thought Beth had an adjustment. Hey, Beth.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, that's my iTunes.
Hey guys, hang on. I'm gonna join in. Hey, what platform are you guys on? Skype? FaceTime?
It's in the invite.
Oh, never mind. I see it. It's right there in the invite.
Okay, now I can see everybody. Let's reschedule and let's just do a regular old conference call, okay? Paul, can you have David send out the 9-digit passcode? I heard you.
Yeah, he's been here the whole time.
All right, everybody. I'll see you later. Like a lot of video conference calls, this one sucked, but it wouldn't have had we been using Zoom. Zoom will host over 4 billion meeting minutes over the next year alone. And that's because it's not only easy, it replaces...
All right, so what we saw something over here that probably many of us now are facing on a daily basis to understand, the technological glitches, to understand the situational context, and the challenges to deal with both the technology and the situation, right? And now that there is no boundary between your office and home, the challenges are even it's just enormous, right? So how do you deal with that? And on top of that, many of you probably would be realizing that we end up working a lot more than when we are at work. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with those technological issues? And it's not just technology. There are other kinds of issues. That some of your colleagues, no matter what time you call the meeting, would always be late. Yeah. We'll talk about that. So the multidimensional aspects of business communication is because there are different kinds of people are involved over there. It is you will be dealing with different psychological aspects of that. If there are technological issues, you have to deal with that. You have business issues. That you have multiple stakeholders, and you will be dealing with them as well. And and different people would have different kinds of goals, and therefore it has to be multidimensional. So dimensions depends on what are the things that we are trying to achieve, and different people may have different kinds of goals, and therefore there could be a lot of dimensions from which communication can be approached. And oftentimes, because it is multidimensional, it becomes even more complex to conduct a computer-mediated business communication. And especially when you are not in when you don't share a physical space, it becomes a lot more complex. And we talk about why physical space is, important at times. Not everything can be done through computer-mediated communication, right? So, what purpose does CMC serve in business, right? Although you just saw that the Zoom and things like that, they're promoting themselves as the savior, but they are not, honestly. At times, even with Zoom, you would have a lot of troubles, and it's not stable, and there could be some other issues that whether you are not very familiar with that platform. How do you deal with that? So, although voice communication such as Skype, Zoom, and other forms of voice over internet protocol transmission are popular in recent years, text-based CMC is still predominantly used in workplace communication. In fact, email is the most commonly used form of CMC in organization even today, and it is a powerful communication tool, right? So what happens that no matter how many how advanced your technology is, still emails is it seems to be replaceable. So we spent a lot of time sending or responding emails and sending emails. So therefore, as we focus both on voice over internet protocol as well as text-based communication, computer-mediated communication. The popularity of emails over memorandum are good to be for the following few reasons. First of all, it has it provides linguistic economy, since it is tempered by the need to maintain social, what is called fatigue or contact between users. Email style tends to be less formal than other forms of other varieties of written workplace communication. And three, email contains features traditionally considered oral. So it is both oral and written. So therefore, it gives a lot more flexibility to us. So and now, how to deal with them, how to understand. Sometimes when we exchange emails, we complain that the person doesn't know how to even write an email. Another person says that she is probably a lot more aggressive, and or he is a lot more not so expressive. These kind of things would happen, and we don't really understand that. So how to deal with those kind of issues has to be also understood if we know how to interpret even computer-mediated communication, and we'll get to that just in a while. But before we do so, we really need to understand what is the most suitable medium for us to communicate a particular idea. Should I select, email? Should we go over voice over IP? Should we, even use, say, WhatsApp chat or something else? So, what are the things that would help us determine what is the most appropriate channel for us? So, to be very honest, there is no fixed answer for that. It all depends on what is the group size, what is the organizational norm, whether sometimes if the organization is very casual, they probably would be using say WhatsApp chat. Maybe they have designated WhatsApp group. Or sometimes it could be just email and things like that. But if we do not understand the complexity of those mediums and the purpose that medium serves, we would not be really able to make use of those particular platforms in an effective manner. So that brings the concept of something called media richness theory, right? So media richness theory talks about which medium is rich and which is not so rich. So if we have a one-dimensional continuum, right? On one hand you would probably keep face-to-face communication, and on the other end of the continuum you will have written communication, right? So why the face-to-face communication is considered to be the richest in terms of media richness theory, because you can see the verbal as well as non-verbal communication. You can see the context in which, or the physical context in which the communication is taking place. You also know that the emotion of the person is visible. But then comes the voice over IP. So in this, where you can see the person and you can hear, but if the frame of that person is restricted, so you would not be able to see what is happening. For example, the video just rewards, right? We just see a particular frame, and then suddenly the kid comes to the father and started giving him a hug, and all those things are happening. So you don't know what is happening behind the camera, so far. And suddenly, we jump to a quick conclusion that, this guy is not disciplined or something like that happens, So because we really don't have, a larger view of his frame. Now, from there, you can shift to the other areas, for example, it would be chat, synchronous chat, where you want the other person to be present at the same time to have, instant conversation. Then you can also have email, and you can have a written memorandum. So as we go from face to face to the written one, you see that some of those things would be reduced. Face verbal versus non-verbal. The physical context. Some of those would be reduced in greater or lesser degree, and that makes things communication slightly difficult in some cases. But some cases it can be also very useful. For example, if you have to give instruction, or to how to assemble something, right? Rather than face-to-face communication, maybe a written document would be a lot more useful than a voice over IP. So we need to really select, that appropriateness medium. As being physically or psychologically present. Tasks that require managers to have good interpersonal skills, such as resolving disagreements or negotiation, demand high social presence, right? For example, if you have, if you want to resolve a disagreement, or if you have to get into a negotiation, I don't think email or in a kind of CMC that is primarily written in nature is the best form. That is where you need to have more, a platform that will give you more psychological presence of the other person. In contrast, tasks such as exchanging routine information require less social presence. So if you talk about those things, which one you need to adopt, you really need to think, what is my purpose over here, right? It is not that email is the best, for everything, or voice over IP is the best. Sometimes voice over IP could be a lot worse than email, and vice versa. So moving forward, I will
Okay, boys and
discuss,
girls, don't leave. Don't exit.
So
I'm taking
look
attendance
at
now.
this video.
वाह 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 वाह, क्या नसीब है मेरा, आज खुद शाहरुख खान आए मुझसे बायोलॉजी सीखने. चलो चलो शाहरुख खान, come on, turn on your video बेटा. Come on, show me your face. Okay, okay. Boys and girls, if Shahrukh Khan does not turn on his video right now, no one will be marked present today.
अरे ब्रो चलना.
Bro, please.
अरे अभिनव ब्रो, अभी थोड़ा ज्यादा हो रहा है.
प्रेजेंट मैम.
MCQ टेस्ट evaluate हो गए हैं. I'm sending you the solutions. Make sure you go through each and every question. Okay? बेटा शिवम, क्लास के बीच में क्या खा रहे हो?
कॉर्नफ्लेक्स मैम.
ये खत्म हो जाएगा ना तो अपनी मम्मी का नंबर मुझे भेजना, ठीक है? लास्ट 3 टेस्ट बम किए तुमने, घर बैठे हो तो मनमानी चल रही है. हाँ
नहीं मैम, वो एक्चुअली मम्मी है ना जबलपुर में फंसी हुई है, तो घर पे सिर्फ मैं और पापा है, तो जो खाने को है वो है.
हे भगवान, कैसी औलाद पैदा की है मैंने. फिर मेरे वाइट दुपट्टे के साथ अपने कपड़े डाल दिए. सारी तेरी चड्डियों का रंग लग गया इन पे. नालायक.
नेबर्स मॉम. बहुत नॉटी बच्चा है बाजू में.
मैम आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही, आपकी वीडियो म्यूट पर है.
Thank you गुंजन, you're a good girl. Yeah, so we were learning about monozygotic.
यार ये गुंजन किसी गधी है यार. आयन साली. अच्छा भला वो चुड़ैल चारों लगा म्यूट पे थी, हटवा दिया. मैम आप म्यूट पे हो. देवशी तू म्यूट पे नहीं है, सब सुनाई दे रहा है. कॉल पे कोई तो खा रहा होता है, कोई कुछ कर रहा होता है, कोई ध्यान नहीं देता यार इस पे. और ये गुंजन को बॉयफ्रेंड कहाँ से मिल गया? ओके, गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीवन. सो आई एम प्रेजेंटिंग अबाउट देवशी, इट्स प्रोटोको डेटा.
Very good गुंजन, very good.
Yeah, that.
Continue.
Anyway, I'm just gonna share my screen with you guys right now.
It's okay, it's okay. Keep quiet.
Shit. I'm sorry guys.
So now before we move on to the next topic, come on, Abhinav, tell me what we did in last class.
Mama, about the structure of the.
अभिनव तुम्हारी आवाज कट रही है.
इशू.
हाँ ठीक है, चलो देवशी तुम बताओ.
Ma'am, we studied about.
देवशी, ये क्या है? सबका नेटवर्क खराब हो रहा है.
And the rest we're gonna study today.
And this is divided into subdivisions on the basis of body complexity. Okay? अमूल्या बेटा, सबके बर्तन बजा के हो गए, तुम्हारे हो गए तो can I continue?
Sorry ma'am.
So, it is further divided into 5 groups. What? किसके यहाँ पे बंदूक बजी? Who was it?
Sorry मैम.
ये क्या चल रहा है? ये क्लास है, मजाक है? Everyone keep quiet. Everyone go on mute right now. So,
चारू बेबी, ये दही सड़ गई है क्या? सूंघ के देखना.
I said keep quiet. So everyone, is this clear? Now, Shivam, why don't you read the next paragraph? Shivam?
Revolt of 1857, ma'am.
So, what we noticed here, that this is the situation many of us face while conducting online classes. I don't know about you. I have heard many stories from my colleagues, when the students, when you ask them to switch on their camera, right? Either they are in a very awkward position, or they don't realize that they are inappropriately dressed. If they don't want to answer something, they pretend that so they understand the issues of computer-mediated communication lot more than probably many of us as instructor understands, right? So what happens there? So how do we really conduct this kind of sessions as an educator, be it in a business school or any other school, right? So that's also now unfortunately education has also become business, so there is a value attached to everything. Although when it was not business, there were also issues of that. So accountability was a problem. So I'm not getting into that aspect. But now that we all are using some forms of computer-mediated communication to impart knowledge and educate our younger generations, I think we can complain and grieve about it, and okay, go ahead with that. Also, if we do not like that, we need to really work on that. But just to work on your technology would not help. You need to really understand the psychological aspect of those who are attending. Right? If you do not know your students well, you may not be able to really address that. For example, I know many of my friends, who used who adopted role play, in a physical classroom, might find it difficult to conduct that, in a virtual classroom. So when we do that, so how do I really, engage students? There is something called computer-supported collaborative learning. What is that? How do we actually make learning fun at the same time, enriching, right? Learning may not be always very taxing. Sometimes it can be, yes, but often, it can be fun-filled while understanding newer concepts and, complexities of those problems we're solving. So what happens that, how do we make this learning environment collaborative, and at the same time we impart knowledge? Right? So something of that sort of is what I'm currently working on. Something that I did with my students, not just the course that I just recently finished teaching called Business Communication at the IIM Coricor, also in our executive programs, where I divide the students into multiple groups, but no more than 5 in a group, and no fewer than 3 in a group. Why? What is that magical number all about? Because if you have 2, and if they have disagreement, there is no moderator. Right? They're like a couple, and the couple, when they don't have any moderator, sometimes moderator can be also problematic. But but if you have a moderator, impartial one, they can often resolve their disagreement and move forward. But if you have more than 5, so what happens? You can have 3 and 2, but then what happens? You can have multiple different groups. When you increase the group size, and so it will not be one group. Once there are disagreements, they would subdivide themselves into multiple. But group formation are very important over here. What would be the process of group formation? Should it be random? No, not random. Sampling always helps us. It has to be a strategic group formation. What I do typically, I ask the students to fill out a questionnaire and extract their basic traits, psychological or personality profile, and then I also group them in terms of their gender and work experience versus no work experience, the region they come from, and if those are variables, you could include them into when you are forming groups, and then I ask them to create a WhatsApp group. And give them, for example, if it is a business case study, I assign them a case study, and I ask each group to also include me in that WhatsApp group, where they would discuss those cases, try to solve that, and then they would have to come to a conclusion. right? After the conclusion, they would write a report and then submit. So in this process, what I could understand that, not only the outcome of their discussion, but the process of discussion if I go through their chat log. However, having said that, I must also consider that it's really time consuming, because if you have to go through, if you have multiple groups, like 10 groups, and going through those, chats of 10 groups, one by one, could take probably 2 days. But if you could do that, it's nothing like that. But, in the absence of, or, when we don't have that much time, so what you need to do is to take help of technology. And, you can, for example, I'm in the process of developing a code. In this summer, I had 2 interns. So Shivam Srivastav and Chakraborty, from IIT Kharagpur, who helped me develop, a code and a platform where we could enter this data, and then, with the help of computer-mediated discourse analysis, we could analyze who is interacting with who, and what is the sentiment of all those messages, and also the word cloud, to understand where the focus is. So basically, using the methods of discourse analysis and how technology influences their discourse, we can make sense of their learning process, not just the outcome. And also we can understand what is their domain knowledge, and based on that, as we can have another session where we would know how much we need to really feed them, rather than assuming the students know nothing, on this subject, and because there would be students in the class who know, would probably a little advanced, and there are students who are in the middle, and there are students who are always backbenchers, So how to really reach out to each category of those students, So when you have those, if you have access to the chat log, you probably have some sort of ideas, and if you know how to interpret those chat logs, not the chat log, but understanding or interpreting those chat log with the help of what we call CMDA, computer-mediated discourse analysis, where we analyze the sentiment of the chats, when we analyze the interactivity and things like that, we would be able to make sense of that. So this is the future direction that I am heading to. And I don't know about you, if some of you have any other ways to interpret those collaborative learning. So collaborative learning, defines, is defined that learning has a social kind of objective. So when we interact with each other, you also know how to collaborate, how to, overcome disagreement, all sorts of things. These are the social aspect of learning. And when students learn to deal with these aspects, not just about enhancing their domain knowledge, but also how to deal with people and group members, they learn a lot. So these are certain things that we've been using here. And now I'll talk about how, computer-mediated communication, what kind of factors influence computer-mediated communication, both in business and in education, right? So there are 2 major factors that we talk about. One is the medium factors, and the other one is the situation factors. Medium factors would include, things like synchronicity, meaning, whether while you're chatting, do you expect the other person, or even the technology, not to you, the technology expects the the recipient to be present at the same time, so that it would be real time versus asynchronous. So you have synchronous versus asynchronous. So email is asynchronous for that matter, right? I send an email, and other person, as when she or he will have time, would address that. Message transmission, whether one way versus 2 way. For example, this particular conversation or communication, not a conversation as of now, is, as far as the voiceover is concerned, it is one way, because you can hear me, but I can't. But we have, it is actually, convergent medium. We have a chat box where people can text and I can respond. So that is interactive. That is 2 way. So this particular medium that I'm using to communicate with you is both one-way and two-way. Then the size of message buffer, for example, if it is Twitter, right, you have a certain limit, in terms of characters, so you can't go beyond that. However, having said that, those who are regular in Twitter, know how to even get rid of those boundaries, right? Because recently a friend of mine shared a tweet with me where he, posted a tweet, and then he wanted to elaborate on that message. So what he was doing, he was responding to himself and making his points within those message buffer limits, right? And then, there were multiple such messages where, he was expanding his main topic. And so in tweet itself, even though there was a restriction of, number of characters and all those things, he was able to expand his slides and his points, So anonymous messaging, does the system or medium give you option to send anonymous messaging, where sometimes you feel you don't want to reveal your identity when you are say posting a message, especially in these days, when trolling has become a new normal. You don't want to say something that might go against the popular belief, even though you might be right, scientifically, or if you have other reasons to believe that you are right. So a lot of cases, anonymous, and sometimes people actually become anonymous in order to insult people. Trolling becomes a lot more easier if you are anonymous than with your real identity. Message format, what is the message format? If you don't know, then sometimes that could be problematic, for communication. And private messaging, for example, this particular system that I'm using, it also gives me another channel, where I can privately, suppose I have technical cases, I can get in touch with my, technical expert to private messaging system. Not everything is very, public over here. The situation factors, in just a few minutes I will conclude it. The situation factors that influence us, participation structure. It is one-to-one versus one-to-many, many-to-many. For example, right now it is one-to-many, right? Because I'm talking and you are listening. And then, once I stop talking, there will be, again, many-to-one, probably. All of you would be sending me some messages or questions and things like that. But there's a public versus private, For example, this particular CMC that we are using, is it public or private? It is neither. It is semi-private or semi-public, because anyone can join, but they would have to register. It is not necessarily open to all without any restrictions, right? So degree of anonymity or pseudonymity, so that also allows. Some people use pseudonym, to remain anonymous. The group size, number of active participants, because many of you probably, if not many, some of you may not be active right now, because as we saw, the video in where the teacher was conducting classes, some students are not really active, or they're active somewhere else, but not on online platform. Participants' characteristics would also determine the effectiveness of communication in business, right? Demographic structure, gender, age, occupation would also influence your communication. Proficiency with language and computers and CNC, experience with addresses or group or topic, role status in real life of online persona, of an online persona. Those kind of things would determine the way or the effectiveness of your communication. And the pre-existing socio-cultural knowledge and interactional norms. If you know those things, you would really know how to deal with that. And attitude, beliefs, ideologies, and motivation. There are many such factors. I haven't been able to list all of them. This is by no means an exhaustive list. But if you're interested, I could probably send you an article that my advisor has written, Professor Susan Herring, who is well-known in computer-mediated communication as well as computer-mediated discourse analysis. Now, some of those benefits and the downside of computer-mediated communication. As I began my story, when I was traveling from Chennai to Kozhikode train, and we talked about this family who are glued to this phone and either talking to someone through Facebook or WhatsApp, or maybe playing interactive video games and all those things. While that can be entertaining for some times, but it can be also very, very stressful for some others. For example, the grandmother, I was the only one without smart device, and she had no one to talk to. And I said, I kind of see a sad face, and she was looking through the window, and just looked a little depressed, or maybe she was not. But the fact is, there are people. There is no substitute for human touch, human emotions, right? And all those things. So emotion can be also transmitted through computer-mediated communication. But the fact is, we really need to combine, both CMC and physical or face-to-face conversation in such a manner that no one feels left alone, right? Be it in business communication or be it at home. If you do not know how to integrate that, for example, my wife is an executive editor, and she edits a lot of books on psychology and things like that. So we've been discussing the impact of so this kind of technology on children, the screen time, not just children. She in fact shared an article on how it also impacts our cognitive process. It damages our cognitive ability to think. If we are heavily dependent on the screens or computer-mediated communication. So these are the things. There have been many research, both in the US and in many other countries. Unfortunately, we don't have much research on internet, and computer-mediated communication here in India. But I think it's growing. I could see that many of you are, posting some very interesting comments and questions. I hope many of you join this field and explore it a lot more, so that we could know more about computer-mediated communication and the influence of that. So I talked about the advantages and disadvantages over here. CMC breaks down geographical barriers to communicating, enabling enabling collaboration through communication over distance. People can exchange, store, edit, broadcast, and copy any written document. Two or more people can look at a document and revise it together, consult with each other on critical matters, or ask for any and give assistance interactively. However, the disadvantages are many. Inhibitions related to computers technology use, problems with access to the technology. All those things can bring anxiety. Especially our parents, who did not grow up with these smartphones and all, find it extremely difficult to deal with them. And we get frustrated that this is very simple. How can you not do that? And more time consuming. Sometimes we don't realize that we are addicted to our smartphone. So how to and any kind of addiction is bad. So we really need to find a deep the method of process through which we could probably get rid of those addiction. Absence of regulating feedback, lack of socio-emotional and non-verbal cues. Often if it is stat text, and if you are not very expressive one, your message could be misinterpreted. So those problems are of course always there. The absence of informal feedback between speakers and listeners in the computer-mediated communication conditions makes people don't know exactly when their arguments are understood or agreed. So what happens that as I talk, and I don't see you, right? I probably don't know, whether it is understood in the manner that I want it to, or if you have different level of understanding, right? Because I can't see your facial expression and body language. However, this platform is a lot more enriched, in terms of media richness theory, because I have a chat and people are constantly sending me the chats, and I'm kind of keeping track of that, and therefore I'm able to do that. So again, the media richness enables us to overcome some of those disadvantages or barrier of computer-mediated communication, both in academic institution or for academic purposes, as well as for business purposes. So I guess that's all, and the future directions should also depend on, how much you are interested, and how you want to, what kind of questions you have, because every research begins with a question. And if you have those questions, our future is brighter. So thank you very much, for joining me this evening, and, for being active on this platform and posing a lot of comments and questions and all. I hope that this session makes some sense to you. You get more interested in this subject, And if you want to know a lot more about these things, you have this my co-author book called Business Communication: A Problem-Solving Approach. Has a chapter on what I call internet-mediated communication and how that can be used in both in business as well as in academic institutions. And there are not many in this book. So I hope that you get interested in the subject and explore it further. Thank you very much. So over to you, Prakti.
Thank you so much, sir, for this really great presentation. We have some very good inputs from our audience as well here. So I would like to start with this very key one. I think computer literacy is a really important thing that is required in computer-mediated communication. And so far, teachers to students, everybody, especially in rural India, where computer literacy was not so stressed before, it was so inevitable that we really have to learn computers. It has become kind of a roadblock as well. So do you think you could shed some light on what kind of challenges in rural India are we facing, and what kind of things are we coming up with to overcome such issues and improve the communication overall?
Well, I think that's a great question, and we really have to address that, because when we talk about computer-mediated communication, we mostly focus on urban scenario, and that, if not elite always, but people who are affluent, who can have smartphone and things like that. But fact is, there are people. I know, for example, I come from a rural background, and in those areas, people, either don't have a smartphone, they may have a basic phone, and they or even if some of them have smartphones, it is not that smartphone that alone will determine computer literacy. Unfortunately, there is another very important factor that also influences the computer literacy, and that is English language. Because many of the things are available only in English language, and that's not, some things, not, written in regional languages. One of the unfortunate things that happen, right? So two things, so language as well as technology, that are major challenges. Now, how to get, not get rid of, how to overcome those barriers. Honestly, we have a long way to go, because people, those who do not have a phone, I don't even know how to really deal with that. But what I typically do, I ask them to get in touch with someone in the nearby places, approach people who can maybe, if you ask them to help you with their phone for half an hour, there are a lot of good Samaritans, they would do that. So we need to really create a group, like this is what we call community of practice. Right, where maybe one person who has a smartphone can volunteer to teach, not like to teach, to enable his or her, smartphone to have a session with someone outside, that village, so that there could be some sort of a remote learning session. So I think what you need to do is to understand that these problems will persist no matter how much you progress, and this is a challenging time. We don't even when we are fighting for food, we can't think of smartphone. So, but there are some people. I'm pretty sure I still have faith in humanity who would be able to help you overcome that. So find out those good Samaritans, and maybe those good Samaritans also need to find these people who are in need, and then form a community, for a particular purpose, and then the person can disseminate information, both computer literacy and also, this linguistic barrier. Sometimes, you also need to bring certain text, that is written in the language that people in rural areas understand. So, or translate that, things like that. So there is a lot of scope for us as an individual to contribute to this process. So if some one of you are interested, please do that. That will bring a lot of good results.
Thank you for that, sir. So we have one more. This is actually more from students' point of view as well, sir. So we see, sir, that during online classes, it becomes almost very difficult for even teachers to allow free communication between students, because not everybody is as studious, and to still keep the online classes interactive and everything, that it owes upon to the teacher to make it interactive in the way of presenting and talking to the students. And sometimes what the students really miss is that they are unable to know each other. There are a lot of online programs in which people just enroll online, and they don't know who they are studying with, and there's no communication. So do you think that there's some kind of small solutions that can be taken during the class to introduce people, increase communication further and make learning more fun online?
Yeah, that's thank you for bringing the student's perspective to me, and I can kind of totally see that. When we blame the students for not behaving well, during the online classes, as the video also depicted. But that's not the actual always the story, right? Sometimes the students who are willing to learn, but because of their inhibitions, for whatever reasons, they may not be able to express the doubts to their teachers, right? So I think I ask this question often to the instructor and the students, right? What is the difference between a teacher and a book? A teacher and an online platform, learning platform, right? I think the difference is that a teacher would have to, let's say, customize the learning for every kinds of students. So although for example, I teach a class which typically has over 60 students, right? So there would be around 5 to 6 types of students, or a little more. So and when I teach that, I have to keep all kinds of types in mind, and I bring examples. But even after that, there are certain points that may not be very clear to certain group of students. But I ask them to always as I have WhatsApp groups in smaller groups, they can post verses there, they can send emails. Please, and as an instructor, all of us need to understand that, for example, in offline environment, we used to have what we call office hours, where the students can come to us and spend some personal time, clearing their doubts and all. So even an online environment, I think, which is important, that we allow the students to have those kind of scope, so that they can have one-on-one session, if they are unable to grasp the idea. So I think this is my appeal to all the instructors, that please, make yourself available at a convenient time, so that students feel comfortable, that you have to appear to be approachable. So the students also feel, I have that confidence that I can reach out to this person and ask some question, and you will see that, in what way you can transform on life, and that would probably transform many lives, one to many, there is an induction effect, maybe she or he can go and share that experience with other students, and they would feel a lot more comfortable. And it's a very rewarding experience, when you transform a life. So whether CMC or not, and I ideally think that, combination of face-to-face and CMC, in a judicial manner, could enable us to have a better presence, better communication, both in business as well as in academic institution. So, please, combine that in a manner that benefits you as well as your students and your business. Thank you.
Perfect, sir. So one last one before we leave, sir. Do you think that there are a few tips or some ways of expressions that every professional or every teacher, while teaching their students, in fact, even students while trying to communicate over internet to their teachers, could show or express in such a manner that they are more expressive and more understandable to the other person? Because we all understand that the one major drawback of computer mediated communication is that you cannot see the person in front of you. It becomes very hard to read the body language and respond accordingly, and in fact it becomes very difficult to put across your point in a certain manner. So do you think there are few simple 2-3 tips that everybody should remember while communicating on a computer or using technology?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because that's one of the challenges of CMC, one of the many challenges and one of those major challenges. The thing is, for example, in this particular case, right, I can't see the person who has, asked that question, but, by looking, when you paraphrase the question, I kind of understand the depth of her or his knowledge, where it's coming from. So I think, this is where we need to focus more on the text part, if it is a textual or if it is, even if it is a verbal, the intonation part, and sometimes the choice of words and all those things. And sometimes, it may be that a person may not be very expressive, and that is when it becomes problematic, So if the person is not very expressive, my suggestion would be to maybe work on that. What do you mean by working on someone's expression? I think that's when probably humanities subject would help you understand. Read something from literature and whatever, not just English literature. Whatever you like. So be it your regional language literature and all those things. And maybe sometimes listen to some of the talk shows, there are TED talks and things like that, and and that is how probably you help improve your communication, because unless and until one of the major problems of communication, and it is not necessarily related to only CMC, major problem of communication is that we are poor listeners, and through listening we get the input. The more input you get, and the quality of input to determine the quality of output, right? If you really want to be a little more expressive, and improve, first of all, introspection is required over there. Some people may have psychological issues, and by psychological, I by no means saying that psychological problem. There are different kind of things. But some people may be a little shy. Some people, they have multiple such things. But whatever may be those cases, I think if you are a better listener, and at the same time, and I know there are some people even after being good listener, they are not able to express, and that is where I think they need to work on. And to work on that, either you need to find a good mentor, who could help you. Because often, it can be also psychological in nature. Because there is this movie called The King's Speech. It's a famous speech, film where even a privileged child who was, supposed to be the, head of that particular state, was having difficulty addressing a large gathering. He was not so uncomfortable talking to his wife or kids, but when it comes to talking to a stranger, he would start murmuring. And then he would go to different speech therapists and phoneticians and things like that. No one could help him because it is not a skill. It is about psychological issues. And later on, there was an unorthodox speech therapist, who helped him understanding his past, his childhood past and things like, and the way he was dealt with, in his childhood can have a lot of implications, even in your expression. So, communication is just not a skill. So I can't give you this kind of tools. So if you have that, you'll improve. I think it's a lot better than that. And in fact, the way I look at communication, it is skill. Of course, skill plays a role, but beyond that, in the deep level, it is cognitive. It is psychological. So your linguistic intelligence, your behavioral intelligence, your social intelligence, and your creative intelligence would all determine, whether you are able to express yourself in a manner that is desired and, desired by the other person. So you have to, there is no one way, right? We continuously would have to adapt to the situation based on who am I talking to. And when you do that, that doesn't mean that you change your personality and you are not you are not someone I can believe. It's just that you can adapt to the situation in a manner and respond rather than react to those kind of situations. Right? So when you do that, you think that you are a lot more approachable. People understand you, and your job is done. So the skill set, I think you can listen to some of those things, but beyond skill set, you really have to work on all this linguistic, psychological and behavioral issues.
That was really informative, sir. And I'm sorry, but this is really something that I would like to, bust a myth that only tech-savvy people can communicate over computers. I think computers are really inevitable these days. So if you can just bust this myth that you have to be tech-savvy to use a computer.
No, you don't have to be tech savvy, to use computer. No, if you're not tech savvy, you just need to have a bit of computer literacy, but not tech savvy. These are two different things. The fact is that, communication is influenced by technology, no doubt, and we must understand the technological, aspects, as I talked about, what is the with the one way versus two way and all those things. Well, that is important, but that alone is not the determining factor. I think it's what matters is that whether you understand human psychology when communicating, right? Whether it's a one way or two way, whether you have. I know there are a lot of people who may not be very tech savvy, but because of their deeper understanding of human psychology and their linguistic, right, heightened linguistic intelligence, they can communicate a lot better, and they can actually hire someone who could help them, to overcome those, technological barriers. So you can hire someone to get rid of those technological barriers, but you cannot probably hire someone to, of course, you can take help, but you need to really work on your communication first, which includes your linguistic intelligence, your social psychological intelligence, and understanding of interpersonal psychology. Understanding of what causes damages to your conversations and things like that. When you do not understand that, you would always put the blame on the technology. So there was this saying that um, you you always find a scapegoat. When things do not go as per your wish. So don't find the scapegoat. I think it is important that we understand the challenges and work on it.
Great. So I think this was a really, really informative discussion. So any parting words for our audience, and then we can have a last word from.
Okay. I think this particular pandemic situation has made us understand probably the importance of computer-mediated communication a lot more than ever. Because without this, we probably won't be able to operate. So, do not hate computers, but at the same time, do not get addicted to it. I think we need to bring that balance. You don't have to be tech savvy to use computer-mediated communication effectively. But you do have to understand the nuances of communication, the factors, the social, psychological, cultural, and creative aspects of creative factors that how those factors influence our communication. Because communication is cognitive at the same time. It requires skills to improve. You can always acquire those skills to improve. But sometimes you see that if you have watched Charlie Chaplin's films, you would understand what I'm talking about, because Charlie Chaplin hardly said anything in any of his films, but we understood him perfectly because he knows the essence of what it means to communicate. And when you know that, you would not blame on computers. So But at the same time, do not stay away from computers. So use them judiciously so that you can make use of them in a manner that is not only useful for you but also effective for others. So, communication by default is dyadic. Even when you talk to yourself, you create a persona. One is real, one is ideal, and one is real. So we talk to them. So when you have those dyads, what you call dyad, right? You really have to understand. So both people, at least two units are required. So if both of them are not on the same platform, no matter how knowledgeable you are, how tech savvy you are, you will not be able to communicate. Right? And our goal is to have a more more harmonious way of using that, so that we maintain some sort of sanity, because there are a lot of challenges, and we have to overcome the challenges. But at the same time, when you use this particular technology to overcome the challenges, you see that it doesn't transform others. It's like maybe it transforms others too, but it transforms transform ourselves. So when we use that in a manner that is not only beneficial for others but for ourselves, we would be able to overcome this problem. So that's all from my side this evening. Thank you very much, Prakriti, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. And many of those are part of my books, called Business Communication, a Problem-Solving Approach. This is co-authored by two other professors from the US. And if you want to know more about that, please explore them. I think you will also get an instant access, e-book access to this book. So go and explore.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you to all the attendees for joining us in this very insightful discussion today. Sir, as you rightly mentioned, sir's more insights and inputs are available in his book, Business Communication, a Problem-Solving Approach, which is available on Amazon. If you wish to purchase it, the ISBN and the QR code that can directly land you to the page where you can purchase the book is available on your screens. More so, if you have any more questions, please feel free to write to us at support.india@mheducation.com. Before logging off, I would just like to highlight that your certificates and a recording of this session will be made available on your registered email IDs within the next 7 days. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was great having you all. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and for this lovely discussion. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.